Here we go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let me see. I want to be on TV. I always want to be on TV. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I wanted to be on TV. I always wanted to be on TV, you know. It's important for me to be on TV. Here we go. Let's get us started. Here we go. Come on. Here we go. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Good morning, Maria. Jeremy. Oh my God, Jeremy.
Jeremy made it. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, Atlanta. Good morning, Southeast. Good morning, East Coast. Good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for being here, opening up your calendar, and being part of the Daily Huddle family, where we say here, let me see. Michael Harris, what do we say here?
The way you start the day, your day, gives you the rest of your life.
Exactly, that's what we say here. That was awesome. We're creating a language, Saurel, out there in the marketplace. The way you start your day gives you the rest of your life. So let's get us primed for America's executive coach. Actually, Saurel, you have a question, or should I?
Yeah. I don't have a question, but I have a little statement to make. You know, I have a friend of mine. Guy claims he can see in the future. So he goes to the doctor for the condition. And doctor goes, so how long have you suffered from that condition? You know what he answered?
What?
Since next Monday.
That was terrible. That was terrible. I love it.
Gio, I'm not trying to take your place. Just having fun.
They get worse and worse. I love this. This is just the right way to start the day. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Let's get us primed. Pamela, can you speak? I know you're probably doing something like, yes, she can. Awesome.
Yes, I can.
Pamela, where are you?
I am right here where I need to be.
Yes, at any moment you are right where you're supposed to be. Thank you. Thomas, well, I don't know. Thomas, can you unmute yourself, Thomas?
Yes, I can.
Thomas, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing good now. Rough and tumble, but I'm going to make through it okay.
Thomas, you are the way that you say that you are. That's how you are. You get to say,
Wow.
You get to say something else and you be something else. Michael
Okay.
Harris. Yes, thank you, Thomas. Michael Harris, 2 questions for you. What time is it, and one thing you're grateful for?
The time is now, right now. And I am grateful for family and my circle of friends.
Love it. Thank you, Michael. Saurel, America's leadership coach. Thank you for being here and creating the space for us to be in the inquiry of a powerful conversation. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Giovanni. Thank you for teaching me how to tell bad dad jokes. You know, I finally mustered up the courage to tell one yesterday, and now you've got me hooked.
Love it.
Giovanni, thank you for your partnership. Everyone, thank you for your listening. The kind of listening that creates the space for us to pose a question that probably has no answer. And if you answered it, it wouldn't be worth the answer. But here's the question. How to lead free from the constraints of the past and create a new future. So Giovanni and I were musing and inquiring into that question yesterday. And we said, you know what? Let's have that conversation on the Daily Huddle. And to have that conversation, there's a particular way for us to create it and for you to listen. So first of all, everything we're about to say is not the truth. And the question itself is worth looking into. How do you lead free from the constraints of the past and create a new future? So let's hop onto that conversation. Giovanni and I were looking at this yesterday, and here's what we got. That first, there is something about the brain that leaves us in a space where, Gio, you talked about making a bold statement concerning that. Go ahead and kick us off with that bold statement.
Yes, Saurel, thank you. So the opportunity of this conversation, how Saurel was pointing to, is to look in the context of an inquiry, not in the context of, we're going to tell you the truth about something and write this down and go back to it. No, it's more in the context of, let me see what these guys are pointing to. Let me see what these guys are pointing to in the context of, how do you lead your life, wherever you lead, free from the constraints of your past and create a new future. So what the hell does that mean? So we're saying this in the context of inquiry, that the main objective of the brain, the most important thing that your brain cares about, your brain, where you're sitting there, is to survive. And what we mean, in other words, is that the brain on its own devices, it goes to the past to see what worked. It goes to the past to see what survived. Not necessarily what worked, what thrived, what got us to work together. No, what survived. And then in some, magical way, it will kind of create the future from what survived. So that's what we're saying here, that the main objective of the brain is to keep you alive, and that also accounts for what didn't work, what we resented. Because what you resented, what didn't work, still kept you alive. And the brain liked that. That's what we say.
So what does all that have to do with leadership? So when, before this conversation, when I spoke of leadership, I thought of, I'm a leader when I'm in business. I'm a leader if I'm a politician leading some group. I'm a leader if I'm the head of a community organization, leading a grassroots effort. In the context of this conversation, leadership really refers to wherever you are in life and you're leading. So you could be a mom and leading, a dad leading, an employee leading. Wherever you are in an area of your life that's important to you, you are leading an initiative. Magnitude of the initiative doesn't matter. You are leading. And there's a connection between my ability to lead, your ability to lead, and how the brain functions. Giovanni mentioned earlier that the brain exists to keep us surviving as a species. So whatever's happening in the environment, the brain's going to reach to the past, find patterns, create for us actions and strategies to keep us alive. Now, in the context of my physical body, that really matters. If a truck's coming, you know what? I need that pattern to operate automatically and get my body out of the way. Unfortunately, our brain responds to both physical stimuli and emotional stimuli and even imagined stimuli the same way it responds when my body's in danger. So imagine this. I'm in Haiti and I'm in a dictatorship. I hate it. But guess what? My brain figured out emotionally how I needed to be to survive being an adolescent, growing up under the fist, the iron fist of Papa Doc Duvalier. And what Gio's pointing to, which is, it's crazy, yet it's something we need to look at. While I survived, Papa Doc hated the lack of freedom, hated the fact that my family had to flee the country. The very leader I resented is the very leader I became. Why? Because the way my brain works is that if I survived it, it must be good for me. It's going to keep me alive. So there is this relationship between how the brain works to keep us alive and how that gets connected to things that aren't physical harm and leadership. Go ahead, Gio.
Yeah, I so love what you're pointing to, right? And I'm so, as you're sharing that, I'm looking for myself, Saurel. Well, how does this apply in my life, right? And I can see first the simple examples that we all like saying in society. I became like my mother. I became like my father. The very things I dreaded about my father, the very thing I dreaded about my mother or the people around me, I ended up doing. But I resented that when when it was happening. And then now I see doing it to my children. How is that? So that inquiry is pointing to that's what the brain will do given its primary function. I did survive. You did survive. I also love at the macro level, Saurel, I'll give another example, Saurel, at the macro level. I love the example that Stephen Covey gave at Harvard University on this main topic. And he said something around that humanity is doomed to repeat its past until it recognizes that the brain will just continually survive its leadership. And he was pointing to how in Peru, when the Spaniards came to massively work the land and just really suppress the people, right? And they did atrocities to the people of Peru when the Spaniards came, and then the work became so large that they needed to use the people they were oppressing. The very people that they were rioting outside, trying to make sure that the Spaniards left, they needed to use them as managers to continue the work. And interestingly, what they discovered is that when they started using, like creating this inclusive environment and use the people of Peru to work the land, to work the resources, the people who were oppressed became the oppressors. They started leading exactly the same way, right? And here in America, you could see it. The people who didn't have a voice for so long, right? All of a sudden now want to make sure that those who are counter arguing what their views are should not be heard. We become the people, we long to be the leaders we want to be, and we become the leaders we survive. It's an inquiry. It's not the truth, right? Don't get stuck with the truth. You're going to start arguing with me. It's just an inquiry. I am becoming, in my leadership, the people I resented. Go ahead, Saurel.
Yeah, Giovanni, that is the crux of it, right? Each of us myself, you, Michael, you want to become the leader you most admire. And given the way the human brain functions, you become the leader you survived. You want to become the leader you most admire, yet you become the leader you survived. So the same people in Peru who were being oppressed, when they were being oppressed, guess what they were doing? They were very likely banding together and plotting and strategizing about how to overcome their oppressors. Yet they survived. And the minute they got the opportunity to replace the people who are oppressing their people, they became the oppressors themselves. It's a funny thing, isn't it? So you become the leader you survived. So in the context of this inquiry, what is this worth? Well, it's worth this. It's not the truth, yet now we're aware that this is functioning this way. And when you are aware, you can start to look. So I'm inviting you to look right now. Just look in your life, whether in business or personal life. Where have you become the leaders you survived? Go ahead, Giovanni.
I'll start with my example to give some context. And if you guys have an example, share it. So when I was growing up, one of the things that I really liked about my father is how he was always, he still does, always has a great attitude. You know, things are always half full. And then the thing I resented about him, or I didn't have that language, the thing I didn't like about him is that I couldn't see structure and purpose. I couldn't see it, structure and purpose. And so I kind of grew up wanting him to be strong and purpose and structure all the time. Where is your purpose? Where is that compass? And I felt that without, this is not true, right? Without that structure, purpose, there is no freedom at the end. And so over here now as an adult, who I became is someone who looks for structure and purpose everywhere. Everywhere I look for purpose and structure. Sorry, for structure and purpose. Everywhere. So with my children, they can be 2 years old. I'm already asking them, what's your legacy, man? What are you going to leave on earth? And around me, they do not have any freedom. It's like, father is home, dad is here, so there is no freedom to be. There's no freedom to act. Everything has to have some structure, some meaning. And without this distinction, without looking, I didn't realize that I became the leadership I survived. I didn't realize it. Now, there are other areas, but I just want to give that example, sorry.
Yeah, and Giovanni, thank you for sharing that. And now is the time. Giovanni and I just opened the door for you to enter, and we're inviting you to dip yourself in this inquiry. And what Giovanni and I are creating is what I call an access, like a reliable access to being the leader you want to be. So that access is seeing where you have become the leaders you resent. So now it's your turn. What are you hearing in the conversation? What do you want to create for yourself? Who's your favorite leader you resented and now you're so him or her, it's not funny? Go ahead.
Yeah. Or what's opening up in the conversation for you also. What's, opening up, what you're noticing, what you're seeing, because there's a certain depthness to this conversation that leave us thinking, Saurel. So well, I like to hear what you guys are, what's opening up. Go ahead, Rose. And go ahead and unmute yourself.
Good morning. Good morning. Interesting conversation. So lots is coming up for me. Because I've been kind of in this inquiry in some ways over the past year. So when I was young, my mother was ill a lot. So she was out of the home a lot because she was very ill. And I decided that I was not going to be like her. And so it's so interesting because not like her is just the other side of the coin, like her. So I just wanted to get that in because maybe some of us are thinking, oh no, I decided I was not going to be. But not going to be is really in the same domain, in the same realm as, surviving the being of, right? It's surviving the not being of, and the influence that has on who you are as a person. And then you start layering on, I started layering on the surviving of other, quote, authority figures or leaders in my life. So it's really kind of a onion I feel like I have to peel back. But I didn't consider, so I've been thinking about the mom part of it because I really get who I am is my mom. I'm very clear about that. But I didn't get the part about layering on the surviving of other leaders. So that's the part I'm looking at now. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you. And, that reminds me of my elementary school teachers. My elementary school teachers were so strict. I say my handwriting is the way it is because of the number of raps I got on my knuckles. And God, I hated it back then. But when my kids were going to elementary school, there's nothing I hated more than to look at their handwriting and go, how horrible. Gosh, you're never going to amount to anything. Your handwriting sucks. I resented it and I became my teacher. Thomas, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I got was interesting conversation. It's very timely also, I would say. I got that true leadership is valuing others for who and what they are and giving them the leadership and freedom to be that leader as you yourself would choose.
That I got that, Thomas, and that insight is cool. And I'd love to hear if you could say it in about 1 minute or less. What leader did you survive that you have become?
Well, the leader I survived, my dad was a full-blown alcoholic and abusive individual. And I chose at that point in my life that when I had opportunity to lead my family, I would lead them in authenticity and truth. The truth being what works for you doesn't work for me. Allowing the freedom of choice and allowing them to be who they are authentically without judgment.
So you became not your father.
Correct.
I got it completely. Thank you for sharing that, Thomas. Ronald, go ahead.
Can I go after him? Thank you.
All right, CC.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. One thing I'm getting out of this conversation is not only the leader that I am becoming, but is the constant awareness that I'm building around the people that I talk to. And that constant awareness sometimes, and I have to really learn to back down, because that constant awareness sometimes is coming like I am, like I don't want to stop. There's no place to stop. Let's keep building a legacy. Just like Giovanni said earlier, what are you leaving as a legacy? So I am constantly seeing myself building up this legacy, building up somewhere, building up people, to the point that, you know, they're saying, you know, back down, you know, and I think part of that has to do with, you know, when I look at my father, he was my he was my cheerleader, but yet I kind of really did not fall into the area. I mean, I cheer, but I'm demanding. I become a more demanding person, and that's that I'm just saying that I need to back down. That's where I am.
Yeah, I love how you framed it at the beginning, is the constant awareness that, for me, the opportunity of the conversation is for what you're saying, Ronald, the constant awareness of where, not if I did, of where am I becoming the leader I resented. The constant awareness. I think the trap is to think that doesn't apply to me. That's precisely what happens to every politician. Every politician I ever talked to, and I've had the chance to speak to some, before they had power, they were really like inspiring for what their heart was driving them. And then they become the leader they survive. Then I see them on TV saying, what just happened? It was the strategy they survived that they became. So not judgment over here in what I'm saying. I'm not creating judgment. I'm just pointing to what you're saying, Ronald. Constant awareness of where my brain goes to become the leader I resent.
Yeah.
Cece, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I became the leader that survived life experiences. My father was an alcoholic, was very abusive, and God blessed me with the best of both of my parents, as well as every person that either was a teacher that has made contribution into me, as well as this call. All of you guys have contributed by sharing, as well as by talking, and that's what I survived and became a better leader because of all of this that you guys have contributed. So thank you, everyone on the Daily Huddle. Okay.
Thank you, CC. Cheyenne had her hand up, Gio, and she dropped off, and she's right back. Go ahead, Cheyenne.
Yes, Giovanni, this is a great conversation for me today, because I just dealt with a scenario the other day, and I've been constantly rolling it over in my mind in terms of how I handled it as a leader. And I am a leader I found a women organization here in Montgomery that consists of over 80 members, and it's ongoing. It's just continuing to grow. And the purpose of that organization is to impact, lift, motivate, inspire, empower women, and we do a number of things in the community. But I know as a leader, and I have known, that I'm still a human being. And that element of just being a human being sometimes can kick in, even regardless of how many times we try to still be that leader that we know we should be and ought to be under varied circumstances. So what happened for me the other day, I know and realize in any organization, there's some negativity that comes from individuals. And I'm the type who has been very strategic and creative in how I handle situations like that, particularly in this organization. But to get to the point, I had an encounter with one of my members who's has been very negative in a lot of regards. And I had a conversation with her, and my tone in terms of that constant awareness that you brought to sight today, the tone that I went to with her, it was on another level, no profanity, not any of that. I just stood my ground. I always been a fighter. And under these circumstances, I constantly, and I said, because I had a discussion with my husband, Andre, he said, everything that you said was correct. He said, but it was your tone. It was the human element with me, because I had come to the point where enough is enough. But my point is, how do you balance yourself? Because I have been dealing with a professional tone with her in every regard for a year. And it just came, I mean, I just had to just stand my ground with her. And I don't feel like I should apologize, because I said what I needed to say. And I've been holding on to that for a while. And when I look at my mother, I constantly say sometimes, even with my husband, that my mother was the sweetest person that you could ever meet. But when you really push her, you have to force her into a situation where she stands her ground. And I constantly say that, and I'm reminded of that, but I've held back a lot. But the other day, my mother came out of me, and I stood my ground. And I'm not regretting it. I'm regretting it in the sense that I had to do it. I'm not regretting it in the sense that I feel I need to apologize. I just felt I stood my ground, because this has been consistent. And I feel if you're part of something that's positive and very high, you either be a part of it, and if you're not happy, you leave it. And she's so gifted. I always tell her that. I always count on her for her leadership to bring to the table. But when she comes in any way, it's still negativity. And I just told her what I felt.
Very good.
Cheyenne, thank you so much. It takes courage to be as vulnerable as you're being. And in the context of this conversation, we said at the beginning, it's not the truth, right? And you said your mother came out. And what there is to notice and be aware of, just like Gio was pointing to, is that left to your own devices, in the middle of what I call the being unaware that is normal, who's listening to your colleague is your mother. Who's speaking to your colleague is your mother. Who's reacting to her is your mother. And yet, deep down, you want to be another leader in that circumstance. You want to be the leader you want. And you are being the leader you survived, your mother. So consider that when you're being the leader you survived, you're not there. You're not present. And the response and the reaction you give, even though you're saying, I don't feel like I should apologize. I stood my ground. Consider you didn't stand your ground. Your mother stood the way she always did. And you learned from that. So maybe an apology is something you could consider. Now, to consider an apology, you'd first want to notice that, I'm being my mother. The leader has survived. And then let that go. It's not wrong to be your mother. That's just what comes with the package called being a human being. You notice it, you let it go, and then with your words, you create something brand new. And then from there, you interact with your colleague. So Giovanni, I would offer to everyone these 3 steps at the end to notice the leader you survive that you are being, to let that go, not make it wrong. And then in that moment, create something new and act, think, and plan from there.
Awesome. Well, Saurel, we got to wrap up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
I know that Jeremy had a comment. I can't wait to address it. Jeremy, I'm going to wrap up so that we stay in integrity with our timing, but stay if you want to, and we'll address your question. Thank you, everybody, for being here and creating this beautiful and amazing week here at the Daily Huddle. There are 5 ways that you can live a long life, have an amazing skin, be sexy for the rest of your life, and Saurel is going to tell you how to do it, okay? Saurel, go ahead.
Giovanni, you've transformed this into a dad joke. But here you go. You want to live like a renegade. Love always. Laugh out loud, big belly laughs. Eat sensibly, eat well, stress less, and move and shake what your mama gave.
I can make it my queen.